You're listening to PJ and Friends on pjandfriends.com. Orlando, Florida.
PJ and Friends is proud to present another edition of their Spotlight interview series. And now, welcome your host, PJ.
All right, we're on the air now with Michael Carr. Mike Carr is, I've met Mike Carr through SAK Comedy Lab. I first was a fan at Old SAK at a place near the, what was it? What's the street? Amelia. And then
Amelia, yeah. Yep,
I took several classes and workshops with you, and a fan of yours at Disney from the stuff you do at Disney. So I thought people should get to know you. You were born and raised in Boston, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what was your first experience with theater? What got you interested in what you're doing today?
Good question. When I was a kid, my mother was very much into musical theater. And it's funny, that's actually kind of started more in musical theater than anything else. My mother we would watch, she had movie musicals on video that we would watch all the time. My sisters and I and my mother would put them in, like we would watch Hair and A Chorus Line and Jesus Christ Superstar and, you know, all these movie musicals. So whenever they would come to town, she would take us to see like free versions of musicals or community theater stuff. And ever since then, when I was a kid, I really enjoyed watching it and said, oh, that looks like fun. So my sisters and I would always, you know, like little kids do, we put on plays in our grandparents' basement. And after a while, I kind of felt like that's what I wanted to do. So when I got to high school, I started doing theater, more legitimate, like, you know, some high school theater. And I did community theater musicals for all through my high school career.
Oh, very cool. And you went to college in Massachusetts as well. And
yep, UMass Amherst.
And your degree is in what?
My degree is in theater.
Very cool. And from there, somewhere along the line, you found your way to Chicago.
Yeah, when I went to UMass, I went with the intention of getting my theater degree, which I did, but my focus was really going to be acting. I was going to really focus on, you know, studying acting and studying with the theater department and doing shows at the theater department. But I found an audition notice on my first weekend for an improv troupe called Mission Improbable, and went to the audition. And I didn't get cast, but had a good conversation with the guys in the group, and was like, oh, that's really fun. Improv seems like a good time. And I dabbled in improv a little bit before. And then a semester later, auditioned again, got accepted into the troupe, and that kind of took over my performing career in a lot of ways, was kind of taken over by improv. I still did theater and studied theater and acting because those are very important, but improv kind of became my primary love and my primary focus.
And what venues did you study at in Chicago? You they have IO out there. They have Second City. Which troops did you workshop with? Did you train with?
I trained at the IO Training Center. Did their program. I took workshops and classes at other places, but primarily the only training center I did was IO.
Okay, and that experience, based from the you know, from your college days and the other things that you've done, how much of an influence do you say did that have in where you are today?
It had a huge influence. If we to go back a little bit before I moved,
Please.
Yeah, that's fine. In senior year of college, we did our spring break was a van ride to Chicago to see and do workshops with improv. We'd been doing we did a weekend show every weekend at my college, so we wanted to kind of, we had friends that moved in Chicago, and the guys that had started our group, Mission Improbable, had moved out to Chicago and started their own group, and we talked to them a lot, and they said, well, you should come out and check out shows, so we did. And while we were there that week for spring break, we saw TJ and Dave, we saw several great IO shows, we took workshops with Joe Bill and Mark Sutton and Susan Messing. Oh, not Susan Messing. Liz Allen. And just that's when I decided, like, wow, I gotta come out here. This is amazing to see, not just how improv can be just like a funny, good time for a show, but it can also be this really great storytelling device and this really great piece of theater on its own. So when I got out there, IO was my first destination, and I only stayed in Chicago for 3 years, and luckily got a chance to perform a fair amount and got to learn a lot. So I really didn't have the time to do the other training centers, which I really wanted to,
and
but never had the time.
When you went out to Chicago and you first saw your first TJ and Dave show, around what year was that?
That was it was March of 2003.
Wow, I didn't realize they had actually been a staple that long there. I know, obviously we know of them; they're very popular in the community. I just didn't realize that they had been there. You know, because they're still going. I mean, they're still just as popular as they were back then. Probably more so.
And when I saw them, Dave Pasquazi was not there. He was doing something else. So it was actually a guy named Brad Morris. So it was TJ and Brad, which was pretty cool because Brad Morris is a performer I saw a lot of times when I lived there, who was a great performer. I've seen TJ and Dave several times, and I've seen it, I think, more times without Dave than with Dave. They would always have guest performers in who were always great. So it was always fun to see that show. But yeah, they've been around for a while.
Right, and so the first couple of troops you were part of, are you a fan more of long form or short form?
I really didn't know terms at that point. I just knew that there was Whose Line Is It Anyway was kind of the only improv I really knew about.
Right.
When I was a kid, Whose Line Is It Anyway was on Comedy Central every day at 3 in the afternoon, so you could always watch an episode of it. And I would watch it all the time because I really liked it. So I guess short form would be the style that I was more attracted to, but mainly because I didn't know anything else.
Okay, and somewhere along the line, you were recruited to come to Florida. To talk about that. Okay,
it was in March or April of 2006. Disney was doing used to do audition tours, and I think they still do them occasionally. But they were actually auditioning for the Comedy Warehouse, so they came to Chicago during the Chicago Improv Festival, and I went to the audition with a friend of mine, and during the audition, they asked me to do some voices and some other things. And at the end of it, they said, "Okay, well, we'll let you know if we have anything." And months went by, I didn't hear anything, and I didn't hear anything until early September. So several months passed when I got a phone call, and they offered me a position to come down and help open up the Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor show.
That's so cool. And
yeah, it was crazy.
And who was it who came up there to interview you or audition you?
As I recall, it was definitely Mike Carr, who is the casting director for Disney, and Dave Russell was there as well. He was my original director at the Monsters Inc. show.
That's so cool. Now, somewhere along the way, between that and you moving down here, I guess Dave obviously has always been associated with SAK for so many years. That equated also to your participation on stage at the SAK Theater.
Yeah, Dave. I met Dave at the audition, and then when we came down, we started working on our show. And actually, it was someone else. It was a guy named Craig Slazak, who was at the time performing with Gen S cast. We were talking about improv one day, and he's like, "Oh, you came from Chicago. You should come to a Gen S rehearsal and just kind of meet everybody and see what you think." So I followed him from Disney to SAK back at the old Amelia location, and got there and met Lyle and kind of started to meet the guys and got invited to start performing then.
And I've that's where my fan of you started. I've always been a fan of Laugh Floor, but I did not know until later that you had anything to do with that. So I can't say that's where I became conscious of you. But I can tell the difference. At least now I can, because apparently one day you did the voice. And I'm like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that because but you have brought for me. And this just as the geeky fan in me, I love watching you. I've had the privilege in the last year to really see some awesome stuff. You guys, we'll get to the change in a little bit, but you guys really have brought some awesome stuff. I mean, you are really. I was talking to David Christopher about this a couple of days ago, where performers nowadays are going back to the old-fashioned. They need to be well-rounded. It helps to be well-rounded. You may not necessarily need to be, but where the old probably before your time, 60s and 70s variety shows where people could sing, they could dance, they could play an instrument, they could do all these things. And now you're looking at like the Tonight Show now, where you got Jimmy Fallon who can sing, he can dance, he can do a sketch, he can do a skit, he can do improv. And so it's really, it's more entertaining than it's been. I mean, there was a time for what it had, but what it's come to now. And I've gotten to see you in many things. And I apologize. I can't remember the name of the lady troupe that came up, and you did a couple of sets with them. They came up, they were doing I think it was the Improv Festival in Sarasota, I think, and they came up, I want to say, they're the ladies from Boston. They sing.
Yes.
And
Stacked.
Stacked, yes. And you were on stage with them, and this was a treat for me. This was awesome. You can sing. You can, awesome stuff. And again, just
Thanks.
from the fan, I always get a kick out of watching you. I've seen a couple of things. You did a couple of things at Fringe. You guys, what was the one? Good Lord, the very first Fringe thing you did, the Executives.
Yeah, the Executives. That was Chase Padgett's initial idea, and he talked to myself and Katie Hammond, who's up in New York, and yeah, we did 2 years of that at Fringe. And
but again, so one of the things I talked about, David, was people seem to forget that while improv is commonly known as funny, it's also improv is theater, and you have been you're just. I'm an addict when it comes to you guys. I can never get enough. So okay, you come to SAK. You workshop with you audition workshop with the Gen S's. And when you started, talk about that a little bit. What was your experience like?
When I started with SAK?
Yes.
It was fun. It was a great time. There was just so much. It was great to have a place to just get up and do some improv again. And it was a different style of improv because, like I said, when I went to Chicago, that's where I kind of got introduced to the idea of long-form improv and what that means, and still discovering what it meant to me. I mean, I'm in a different place now than I was then. But, so I came back to here, and it was like, oh, yeah, we do games, and it was fun to get that muscle worked out again. But for me, after doing 3 years straight of pretty much exclusive long-form improv, and then going back to doing the games again, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And there's not and I realized at times when I'm like, oh, there's not a huge difference between short and long form other than what you call it, I think is the major difference. I think you can always boil down to playing good characters and doing good scenes. So I ended up really just kind of having a lot of fun and just getting to stretch some muscles again, but also continue to work the muscles that I've been working in Chicago. So it was a lot of fun, and I still a lot of fun. It hasn't changed.
And does it ever amaze you? For me, again, I get to perform with some idols. Like I was a Comedy Warehouse geek. I was there every day for a long while when they were there. I was annual pass holder, and so for me, I've gotten to get on stage with Mark Lehner. I've gotten to do stuff with Mary Thompson Hunt, and I've teched for them and things like that. So I've been able to interact with people that I've idolized. But you get on the stage, and there's some really, really talented people. These are really Orlando. The theme parks bring in a lot of they've got a lot of talent here, and so
absolutely
SAK gets a lot of benefit, I think, from that. But also, it now more so than before. I think it's become a well-rounded location. It's become more than just the improv and all that, but it's got a good reputation for quality entertainment, quality theater. You are getting a chance to perform. Does it ever amaze you of just what's here? I mean, this is amazing stuff we're getting to see here.
Oh yeah, that's an awesome point that I think a lot of people who don't live in Orlando, or come and go from Orlando don't really realize is that we have, I think, one of the biggest beds of just talent out of anywhere in the country, because so many people can come to this town and perform for a living, which is a lot of people's goals when we get into this business. Like my goal was never to be famous. I never wanted that. That was never something that was like, oh, I want to be famous and be on TV or be in movies. That would have been a great side effect to working, if that happened. And if it does happen, because the beauty thing of our business is it can happen at any time. But I love Orlando for that reason. There's so many great performers here, and so many great performers of different backgrounds. There's amazing singers. There's amazing dancers. There's triple threats, people that can sing, act, and dance. There's great improvisers. And they come here because there's places to practice their craft on a daily basis. So yeah, Orlando is such an amazing
And
town
Disney and Universal is not a bad thing to have on your resume. I mean, there's so many people. If anybody, you know me, I'm a SAK history nut, and there's so many people. They used to, at the old SAK, used to have a wall with all the pictures of the old, the alumni and people that have gone on. People have gone on to write for sitcoms. People have gone on to game shows, and they've TV shows, and they've done all these things. And so people, SAK has been a stepping stone for quite a few people, and I think that it's an awesome thing. You teach now. You along the way, you started teaching the individual classes there, and now you bring in some really. Last year you had a kind of a treat where Kevin McDonald called you guys looking to come down and teach. So you guys have gotten to be a name where people are saying, "Hey, this is a location to come and teach." Who are the workshops you've taken over your lifetime? Who has influenced you the most? What has brought, I think, helped you in your craft in your direction?
So many. When it comes to improv, there's so many different schools of thought, and I love getting the opportunity to study with people that come from a different school of thought that I was trained in. So when I was at IO, which I still love, and I loved my training there, one of my favorite teachers there was Jason Chin, because he was just so great at boiling down what a scene should be and how to make a scene work. I learned a lot about just basics from Jason in a way that I've never learned anywhere else. On the other side of the coin, when I took a workshop with Susan Messing, I was completely blown away at her style, which was so aggressive and so, pardon the expression, balls to the wall. She's very, very an aggressive improviser, and that was such a refreshing thing to see. Like, oh, you can be an aggressive improviser and still be a giving improviser. I think that sometimes people think if you're too aggressive, you're not being a good listener, and I think that that's incorrect. I think the more aggressive you are on stage, the better it's going to be for your scene partner, because you've got yourself covered, which is something I learned from Susan Messing. I learned it from Joe Bill and Mark Sutton as well when I took workshops with them. There's just so many great people out there. Will Luera is another one who I learned a lot from. I don't know if I've done a workshop with Will, but just watching him on stage and talking to him has been amazing, because he's just got a great mind for where a scene should go. So there's every time I take a new class or see a new show, I learn something, and I think that's one of the best things about improv is because there's so many schools of thought and so many directions you can go with it. If you're aware of yourself and you're aware of what you're seeing, you can continually learn in this field.
And I think that's true. I mean. And I've told David this on my interview with him last week was my experience has been solely SAK orientated in what SAK is. But I've done workshops at Improv Festival and so on, but my core world right now is SAK and whatever it's offered and the things like that. So I refer a lot to that. And it'll be funny. I'll do a workshop or I'll do something, and I'll do out of the blue to a character that I don't think is, not very conscious of the significance of it, only to have someone say like, Richard Paul, I'm going to steal that character or I'm going to steal that idea. And it's a great thing. Right. I mean, it's a great thing. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me, I need to go to a quick commercial, and then we'll be back in a couple of seconds.
All right.
1 second.
You're listening to PJ and Friends on PJandFriends.com. Orlando, Florida.
Have you ever wanted to ride in a hot air balloon? Well, you can with Orlando Balloon Rides. It's an adventure of a lifetime. Take a ride in a hot air balloon. You will fly with the winds on a truly amazing journey. Explore Florida from the orange groves to the theme parks and more. See it all from a whole new vantage point. Experience total excitement from start to finish. You will ascend above the treetops to several thousand feet. This is an experience of a lifetime. Visit OrlandoBalloonRides.com for more information. That's OrlandoBalloonRides.com. Zoom Air Adventure Park Orlando, ziplining at its best. A Zoom Air Adventure is a great outing for families, friends, or coworkers. This entertaining self-propelled attraction gives both nature lovers and challenge seekers the opportunity to enjoy the thrill of adventure. Feel your adrenaline pump as you conquer abundant treetop challenges, including exhilarating rides on our zipline. Visit zoomair.us for more information. That's zoomair.us.
PJ and Friends has several ways to promote your product, service, club, group, or business. You can sponsor a segment or a whole show. Advertising packages are affordable. We can even barter and exchange for goods and services. We can get you heard with live reads, 30 and 60-second commercials. We can do shows live on location. Email us at sales@pjandfriends.com for more information. All right, we're back. Mike Carr.
Hello.
Hey. Thank you for your patience with that. We're lucky enough to land a few sponsors who have been gracious to take care of us, so that's a good thing.
That's great. Congratulations on getting sponsored.
Well,
That's
thank
awesome.
you. Thank you. So let me ask you, what does your family think about what you do? Have they gotten a chance to see you perform?
They never talk to me anymore.
Oh, no.
No, I'm kidding.
That's sad.
No. Yeah, my parents have always been very supportive, and my family's been very supportive. Like I said earlier, my mom kind of introduced us to theater, and when I was, going to college and deciding what I want to do, I told them I want to be an actor full time, and I want to pursue that. They said, "Well, good luck. It's a hard road. It's not easy." And I said, "Yep, I know, but that's what I want to do." So they were incredibly supportive of that, and they've seen me perform. They've come to SAK a few times, and whenever they're down in Orlando, they come to SAK and see shows, and they love it there. And I was recently up in Boston, and a group that got thrown together for last year's Sarasota Improv Festival. We called ourselves Ghost Mom because we thought it was funny. We ended up doing a show up in Boston at the Comedy Arts Festival, and we got to play with Laura Hall from Whose Line Is It Anyway? She played accompaniment for our show. So it was pretty cool, and we had a 25-minute set there, so a lot of my family came out to see that. So yeah, they're very supportive of it. My parents are both secretly artists at heart. They don't talk about it, but they are. They have a lot of art in them, and they've done artistic things in their lives. So I think they're just happy to see it being continued.
Now, you go home. You've been able to travel a little bit. You're able to go home, and I understand you're a baseball fan.
I am.
Who's your favorite team?
It's the Boston Red Sox, of course.
Well, I knew, but I figured I want you to tell them.
Sure.
So you go back quite often, and I think last year you were able to get in one game of the series.
2013, I ended up getting World Series. My dad got World Series tickets, and he said, "Hey, you want to come for a game?" I said, "Okay, let's go." So, bought a very expensive plane ticket for one night, but it was totally worth it to see my favorite team in the World Series.
Very cool. And then we go from a legitimate sport to another legitimate sport, wrestling.
Oh yes.
So we all know that's real.
Wow.
So how did you get involved? What age did you decide you liked wrestling?
Oh God, I was a little kid. I remember watching Hulk Hogan. I was a Hulk Hogan fan when I was a little kid. He was probably one of the most charismatic stars
He was.
of all time. I mean, everyone in the world knows who Hulk Hogan is.
Yes.
Right? It's hard not to know who he is. And I remember watching it as a kid, and we'd rush home and watch all the pay-per-views. Back then there were only 4, now there's 12 a year. But it was always something I just enjoyed. I liked the storytelling of it. It was always, if you watch wrestling and get past the idea of that it's just a bunch of guys fake hitting each other, which a lot of people have a hard time getting past, and you just watch it for its storytelling, it's like, oh wow, so this guy is a good guy who's defending the honor of this person while this person's trying to cheat and steal. And you kind of, it has back in the 80s at least, it had a very interesting sense of right versus wrong. It changed in the 90s. I could talk about wrestling all day.
Fine.
But for me, one of the things that changed for me as a wrestling fan, and the reason I'm still a wrestling fan today, is when I was in high school, I learned about it being, quote, not the fake. I don't want to call it fake because it's not a fair thing to call it fake. When I found out it was scripted and the outcomes are predetermined and these are characters they're playing, that actually made me more interested in it because as a performer, someone who wants to be a performer, I said, oh, so they're acting. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then from that point forward, I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this because these are actors. This is a TV show.
So could it be said that maybe wrestling also had an impact on your acting desire or your interest in acting?
Oh, totally. And it's funny how improv and professional wrestling actually tie together a lot. There's Keith Johnstone, who is one of the fathers of performance improv and such. He talks about he uses wrestling references in his books, and when he teaches, there's a whole chapter he talks about getting heat, which is a wrestling expression about getting the audience to get mad at you. And there are certain improv competitions where you're against each other, where you can get the audience to think you're the bad guy, and he talks about how that kind of influenced him as well. So yeah, I see a lot of similarities between the two, and I use them when we do the show The Brawl at SAK.
Right.
That's inspired by the cage match that I saw in Chicago, but at the same time we brought in some wrestling elements to it, and kind of have fun with that.
Not to mention an awesome opening.
Yeah, it's a pretty good opening.
It is a great opening. Good Lord, there's so many questions going through my head. I've been over in Tampa. I was over working in Tampa for a little while last year, and I keep forgetting that it's a new year. So when I said last year, I'm like, oh, I got it right.
Yeah, it's 2015.
Right. And the Tampa Picture Show, the place where they do the improv festival, like once a month, they have wrestlers come in. They actually put a whole ring in there. And
do they really?
Oh yeah. And I mean, these guys come in, and I mean, they got the hot babes that come in, and they got fans, and these guys, and I have not seen it, but I believe it that every once in a while, big names show up. I mean, they just, they go there. It's kind of like someone coming to an open mic night just to watch, or take the stage. They'll go there but I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, apparently it's one of the bigger deals for them than a lot of the other things that they do, which is sad because they're a movie theater. But it's really awesome. And I keep thinking you guys really should go over there one day, because first it's not I don't know what it costs. You guys go to there's a thing here at Universal. Don't they do something here at Universal?
Yeah, they do. They used to. I don't know if they're still doing it. I think they are. It was called TNA Wrestling. They would do it there, and it was free. You could just go watch it. And I went and watched a few.
Right. Yeah. I don't think this one's free, but that's
fine.
But it's I mean, I didn't know if you knew it, but when I was there once, and they were putting us on, and all these little buff guys are walking around, and I'm like, okay. It was, and here are these guys on a stage in a corner doing improv, and these big guys are walking by. But you know what? They're the nicest people. I mean, they have they have these personas where they're just, some of them are real jerks, but they're just, upset because he didn't get his fries. His water was not cold. But these were just regular people. It was kind of cool.
And another thing that wrestlers do, that improvisers do, is some wrestlers will plan out their matches, but some of them just go out in the audience and go out in the ring. Go, let's feel the crowd tonight. Let's see how they're reacting. Which is a lot of how improv is. You have to be reacting to everything that's happening. That's the most important thing. So there's a lot of wrestlers. I've met several wrestlers over my life because I'm a wrestling geek. So when I meet them, I'm like, let's talk about your business. A lot of them will listen to interviews and radio shows, and they say, yeah, we went out into the ring that night with no plan, and we had a 45-minute time slot we had to fill, and we just called it on the fly. So they're improvising as well, but they're doing a little more full contact improvising. But still, they're using that feeling, that sort of same thing that improvisers use is what do we need to do right now? What's going to work right now? How do we communicate with each other, and how do we keep our audience involved? Right. It all ties back to improv in a way, which is fun.
A couple of years ago, some changes happened at SAK. You were brought in as the artistic director, and Chris Dinger was the managing director. Is that correct?
Yes. Managing director, yes.
Yeah, and it went. You brought in. I was talking to David Christopher about the changes and so forth. You guys, some minor changes, actually, just kind of a perception change, I think. Where one of the things that you did is you came in and says we are not just, because a lot of people call themselves improvisers, but the term was actors who improvise, because the skill sets associated with both are very similar, and the skill set when acting can enhance your. Anything you do on stage can be enhanced by any of the acting abilities that you might have. And he was talking about the same thing. He was talking about how being well-rounded was a big deal.
And to be fair, I didn't coin that term. I adopted it from David Rosowski. He had said it in an interview that he was giving, and even in a workshop that I'd taken with him. So it just kind of resonated with me, and it was something that I'd always felt but he put it to words, so that's completely him.
No. I didn't mean to give that impression that you, but it was a shift at SAK that you brought,
Yes.
and a lot of things. I want to say a lot over a period of time. SAK was having challenges, and like everything, the existence was unsure for a while, and then Chris Dinger, he did his magic behind the scenes with automating things and getting the website done and getting metrics that he can measure, efficiencies that he can measure. He automated quite a few things. You guys have done a lot. You brought in some awesome talent to workshop. You did the Brawl for All. You're doing original productions. You made some changes in house. You brought Lindsay Taylor in as your house manager. I don't think that's the correct title, is it? She's what
She's the assistant company manager.
And she, now here's the thing: if she knew how much she was really worth, could you keep her?
If what?
If she knew how much she was really worth, could you keep her?
Gosh, I hope so.
Can I tell
she
you?
Does so much.
I have watched this
so
girl.
much.
Yes, she does. I've watched this girl. And she does a production. She'll manage the house. She manages the staff. She puts things together. Keeps track of Chris, which is not an easy task.
That's a hard job.
That's a full-time job.
That's a full-time job in itself.
She, I think one of the smartest moves made was, and it's unfortunate, things had to change in order for you to be where you are now. Those changes had to happen. And granted, I've been on my side of things, but the bottom line is, you guys have done wonderful. You guys have. I know it hasn't been easy for you guys. I know it's got to be scary for you too. What do you think? How do you feel about the changes? How do you feel about where you guys are now?
I'm very, very proud of where we are now. Change is hard and change is scary, and it affects a lot of people, but the change is inevitable, and it has to happen in order for things to grow. And I think that when the time came for the changes at SAK, I think it was just the right time. Things had been, a little. They hadn't been as prosperous as they had been in the past, but it was the right time. It was the right time for something to happen and something to change. So, it was a hard road, absolutely, but it was a fun road to kind of experience the whole journey from where I was sitting during it.
Right.
But yeah, change is one of those things that it's without change if you don't adapt, you die. You'll perish. And we just needed to have that spark, and Dave decided that it was the right time and made the move to make that happen.
And having said that, though, I mean, SAK has been around for a while, and it's gone through a number of shifts. And I just think it's a cultural thing. I think times change, and so it's like we now have an iPad where 10 years ago we didn't have an iPad. Everybody has a tricorder in their hands. So with that, as sad it is, I mean, there are lots of things about SAK that I miss that aren't the same, and I have I'm the old guy now. I'm 48. I'm like, I can't get off my lawn. But I obviously, if those things hadn't happened, we don't know where we'd be. And I think that's first, thank you. Thank you guys for doing what you did. Thank you for bringing in these awesome people to teach us opportunities that we've never had. I mean, you had Kevin McDonald reach out to you to come to us, and that was had to be a feather in the cap and make you feel good that they're seeking you out, and that's a good thing.
It was very cool. I didn't believe it when the email came in, and he was like, "Hi, it's Kevin McDonald, Kids in the Hall." No, really, this is who I am. I didn't believe it.
Show me your ID.
Well, I knew that he had he does that with a lot of theaters. He'll kind of reach out because he teaches his class and he wants to travel and do it. So he reaches out to a lot of different theaters. And I called someone else at a different theater and said, "Hey, has Kevin McDonald ever emailed you?" And he goes, "Yeah. Is his email this?" I said, "Yep, that's it." And he's like, "Yep, that's him." So I didn't believe it at first.
So, last year, the invasion, Christmas Invasion.
Yes, Invasion Christmas Carol.
That, first of all, I loved it. I didn't get to see the show. I got to be a part of what you were practicing, and
you were a rehearsal invader.
Yeah, and it was a treat. But how'd it go? I mean, it was well received, right?
It was very well received. It went really well. The show was conceived and created by Dad's Garage in Atlanta, and last year, I want to say 2013, I was up in Atlanta doing a weekend of shows and kind of talking to their artistic director Kevin Galeese, and we were talking about the show as they were getting ready to do it. And we just kind of said, I think that would be good for our theater. I think that would be a good show. Do you guys license it out? And he said, oh, totally. So we started talking then. And then over the summer, we ironed out the details, and he sent me everything that he knew on it and everything he had. So I took their script and adapted it, and then decided our course of action on how we were going to make it work. And it was a great success. It was a risk, calculated risk. It wasn't, we weren't betting the house on it, but we put a pseudo-scripted show in one of our primetime improv slots during one of our busiest times of the year, and it really paid off.
But again, from my side, looking at it, I understand you're concerned, you guys concerned with the risk that you felt, but I'm thinking, knowing the talent that is there at SAK, knowing that, in my eyes, I guess I'm not the one taking the risk, so my heart's not in my throat as much. I guess I'm a safe, objective person. I thought that the chances of it being a bad thing was very, very minuscule. I mean,
and let me clarify. I wasn't, sweating, going, "Oh, we're not ready. This isn't going to work." It was a very good risk because we had an incredibly talented cast at the core of it. A lot of our regular SAK players there, and then a couple of younger, or not younger, but newer players. Like we had a couple guys that don't play on the weekends that we put in the shows as well because they're strong performers. So we had a great base cast, and then the invaders were amazing. All the invaders brought some really fun ideas, and just once they saw the concept and understood what it meant, watching their eyes light up, to like, oh, I can do this in the show. Oh, okay, that'll be fun.
Right.
It was a risk. It wasn't a risk that I was like, oh God, this isn't going to work. It was a risk of like, oh, okay, yeah, we're doing this. This is kind of in a lot of ways, the first big test for
But
me
it was
anyway.
fun to watch because I could tell. Because we have the internal emails saying if you're coming, you better let us know or it's not going to happen.
Yes.
And so how often I got those emails from Lindsay or whoever was managing that at the moment saying, look, if you're coming, and it was on a regular basis that we're sold out. We sold out.
We sold really
You
well.
need to wait outside. We'll let you in, but you need, And so that was a good email to get. It was nice to see that you guys are doing so well. I'm happy for you because I was even, and I talked about this even as I'm a lab rat, so I'm not part of the main ensemble, so I still have a lot of learning to do. And so when I came in and I was a guest invader and you were, even though your mind was on your team, your baby there, you still were able to direct me. You were still able to. You knew it's so cool. We've talked about. My biggest things is listen to what's being said. Blah. Respond to the last thing. Blah blah blah. And even during the course of this, these are the things that you constantly tell me about, and I have a problem being consistent with them. And even with that, although you're focusing on all the other moving parts of this thing, you're still looking at me, and that was the things you were focusing on. You need to listen. You need to listen. It was cool that, you're kind of like a teacher. I mean, you're teaching a room of 30 kids and little Johnny in the back row and, Sally on the in the front row, and you're listening to both of them and you know how to thank you. I mean, again, awesome.
Thank you, man.
How prepared you are. We talked about...
because I didn't feel prepared.
Well, you know what? I think that was the first night. Wasn't that not the first actual rehearsal?
Yeah, you were the first rehearsal invader that we had.
I broke it.
No, but it was great because after the rehearsal, it was like, okay, guys, now we see what can happen. Because it had all been theory up to that point. It had been, an invader will come in and they might do this, they might do this. So you have to figure out how to make the show continue and what your characters would do and how to keep the main story of A Christmas Carol on track while still including all this information. So it was a lot of fun afterwards to see everybody's face go, oh, okay, yeah, we can do this stuff. It was very cool.
And we overall, the things that you guys have done, you Lindsay, Chris, and of course you have awesome people there because there's a corporate side to this. You've got John Hunter, you got Gina Droma Hunter.
Yeah, they're amazing.
You've got core people there that are just really, really, SAK is where it is and has grown to where it is because of these people. I was talking to David, and I was talking to other people, how much Florida has changed over the last couple of years. We've got you got the post-dinner conversation over in Tampa. You've got Just the Funny in Miami. You've got I'm gonna miss the South Florida, Sarasota people, FST.
Yeah, Will Luera just took over down in
and I keep forgetting that.
Sarasota.
I got to write that in my computer so I don't keep this poor guy. He's going to think I don't like him. Here he is. You know, he's from Boston, right?
Yeah, he was up in Boston for a long time. He came down here from Boston.
And so we got like a really neat little community here. And the good thing is, you guys have a great interrelationship.
Yeah, it's really great. David Christopher reached out to me a couple times over the past year, and when our schedules worked out, we were finally able to kind of sit down and talk, and we both were excited about the idea of helping each other out and working together and exchanging. Same thing, Will Luera and I spoke about that too. We have a follow-up meeting we have to have, but with all the great stuff going on in Central Florida, in Orlando, Florida in general, not just Central Florida. There's so much we can do for each other, and we can help each other out and help make Florida this great improv destination, for people to come see great shows. And then when we bring in, high caliber, teachers from Chicago or LA or New York or wherever, we can make it so that it's not just a one-stop trip. We can say, hey, why don't we talk to each other? And, if you're going to come to Orlando, you want to go to Miami? Why don't you maybe head down to Sarasota? So we can make it almost a circuit for people, which is going to help us bring in the kind of players we want to see and the kind of teachers we want to have. And, it's just, it makes everybody better.
But
collaboration makes everybody better.
You've also forged alliances with other troops out of the state. You've got Dad's Garage in Georgia. You have...
they're awesome.
Right. And you guys have come back, just the exchange between the troops have just, again... SAK is a business. SAK is there to make money. And, you've got people that you're responsible for and all that stuff. But even with that, and so you've got to be protective about what you bring on stage. You've got to make sure it's a good product. You have spots for other things. I told David this, and my, I watch people that are far more talented than I am, and they get to do things I would love to do. But I understand you guys have. This is not a nonprofit. This is not a charity. You're there to make money, and you have a responsibility. And so Chris has a responsibility to Dave Russell, who's granted you guys, given you guys the means to do what you're doing. But you guys have you got people from Boston coming down. You've got people. You have Dave Rosowski came in. You've got your conservatory class. You've got your Monday night workshop's going to start up again. I believe you're revamping that. You've got
yes.
You've got so much coming up. You got so much that you do, and you've got the Brawl for All, which allows people that probably otherwise wouldn't get to play on the SAK stage and brings people in to do different things. So you've opened doors in as many ways as you can while protecting the integrity of what you're doing. And I as hard as it is for me, because I would love to play more with the people that are Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I accept where I am, but you're still doing a wonderful thing. It's an awesome thing. And I want to, again, I can't say but thank you to you and Chris, because I know that there was a period of time where SAK's existence was in question. And I think you guys have made the change there.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride to make that change. One thing you mentioned the Monday night workshop, and I kind of wanted to just circle back to that for a second.
Sure.
That's something that has been on my mind for a while, because I want to make it more attractive to people, because it's a great place to come and learn. But getting on stage is one of the best things.
Yes.
For learning, it really is. Getting up and getting to perform, even if it's for an audience of 10 or an audience of 5 or an audience of 60, it doesn't matter. Getting up on stage and performing helps you learn. So one of the newer aspects of the Monday Night Workshop, we're still ironing out the details of this, but we're going to make it have a performance element. So there's going to be workshops, and then right now it's aiming to be like one Monday a month. We're going to have sort of a Monday night jam kind of show, where the workshop participants will get an opportunity to get up on stage and actually practice what they've been taught, and practice what they've been working on. And that's exciting to me, because I love the idea of just having, when I first came in, I was like, okay, shows every night, 3 shows a night, that was my dream. But I had to realize, well, that's not going to happen overnight. You have to build up to that. And that will take a long time. So I'm excited about the idea of getting a lot of those Monday night students who finish the SAK program or have come to us through a different way and are like, oh, I'd love to get up and actually practice this. And now we're going to give them that opportunity. And I know other opportunities have popped up around town, which is great. so people can get up and play, and that's one of the most helpful things.
It is. I need to take one more commercial break, and then we'll come back, and then we're on the last stretch here. So just give me a couple of seconds, and we'll be right back.
All right.
You're listening to PJ and Friends on pjandfriends.com. Orlando, Florida.
Zoom Air Adventure Park Orlando, ziplining at its best. A Zoom Air Adventure is a great outing for families, friends, or coworkers. This entertaining self-propelled attraction gives both nature lovers and challenge seekers the opportunity to enjoy the thrill of adventure. Feel your adrenaline pump as you conquer abundant treetop challenges, including exhilarating rides on our zipline. Visit zoomair.us for more information. That's zoomair.us. Have you ever wanted to ride in a hot air balloon? Well, you can with Orlando Balloon Rides. It's an adventure of a lifetime. Take a ride in a hot air balloon. You will fly with the winds on a truly amazing journey. Explore Florida from the orange groves to the theme parks and more. See it all from a whole new vantage point. Experience total excitement from start to finish. You will ascend above the treetops to several thousand feet. This is an experience of a lifetime. Visit OrlandoBalloonRides.com for more information. That's OrlandoBalloonRides.com.
PJ and Friends has several ways to promote your product, service, club, group, or business. You can sponsor a segment or a whole show. Advertising packages are affordable. We can even barter and exchange for goods and services. We can get you heard. We have live reads, 30 and 60-second commercials. We can do shows live on location. Email us at sales@pjandfriends.com for more information. All right, we're back.
Hello.
Hello. All right, so you got to kiss Kevin McDonald. What was that all about?
Oh, wow. The hard-hitting questions. He initiated it, first of all. Yeah, it was in a scene, and we were a couple, and he just planted a kiss on my face.
He actually
that was it.
He solicited from the audience. He says, "Should I? Should I?" Of course, the audience said, "Well, why not? You know, they look like they like each other."
And it was one of those moments in my life because I'm such a huge Kids in the Hall fan. When I was a kid, not when I was a kid, when I was in high school, really, I was watching Kids in the Hall a lot and just loved it and thought it was so funny. And he was one of my favorites. You know, I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite out of the five because they're all so great. But when I'm on stage, and I think right after that, I kind of leaned over and I said, "I just kissed you, man." Like, I think I said something to him, and he just kind of laughed. It was very cool.
And I want to ask you about the person that's dead to you. Why is he dead to you, Mr. Greg Yates?
He's dead to me. He made his choice, and he's dead to me.
Well, he chose Chicago over you, or?
He chose Chicago over all of us. He didn't just not over me, over us. You know, Greg Yates decided that his own personal future was better than staying with us.
He raised money for new hips and left town.
Oh yeah, he's forget that guy.
I have some questions I want to ask you. These are just silly, and you know,
I love silly questions.
I asked David Christopher some of these, and he just didn't. He's not very geeky. So, for you, is it DC or Marvel?
Oh, okay. I'm not a big comic book fan, but I got to go Marvel based solely on the movies. I think the DC movies have kind of dropped the ball.
And I got to give you credit. Go ahead.
With the exception of the Batman, the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, I thought that the new Superman movie was just really bland. It had really no heart.
It was.
It was just kind of like, it was trying to be dark, and I think Superman's not dark.
They rushed it, though. I know what they rushed to get where they needed to be. I was interested with the way Superman, they did the flashbacks in order to tell the pre-story, because I really didn't want another Superman 1. I mean, I just really didn't want another one. And every time someone wants to restart this, they have to tell their version of how they restarted it. And, of course, having him kill somebody at the end, I'm not so sure about that. But, we'll see.
I think that didn't bother me as much as it bothered a lot of people, because I know Superman doesn't kill, but I think that would have been a great opportunity for the filmmakers to then, in the next scene when Superman lands and there's two criminals or something and he catches them, just to have like somebody say, "Oh man, Superman, you could have snapped that guy in half," and have him look and go, "Never again." You know, just some kind of little thing to show that Superman learned something from the experience. I think that's what's lacking in a lot of movies. It's just those simple little moments that would clarify a character, you know, like simple things.
Are you watching any of the stuff on TV like Arrow and Flash?
I'm not watching Arrow or Flash. I like Gotham. I enjoy that show. That's fun.
I haven't gotten into that. I have to be honest. I haven't seen it, and so I can't really judge it. But my first thought is, I don't want to watch this thing about a city.
Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting show because it's Batman as a little kid. So it almost feels like the Star Wars trilogies. The episodes 1, 2, and 3, where you're like, oh, it's your heroes as a little kid. The Patton Oswalt joke. But it's a fun show if they get away from Batman. Like, honestly, I think Batman should have been in the first episode, Bruce Wayne, as a little kid, and then never see him again.
True.
Because it's not about him. It's about the city of Gotham and how the city of Gotham gets to the point where it needs Batman. Instead, we're watching Batman as a little kid kind of develop, and it's like, I don't want to see that. I want to see Gordon get pushed against the glass ceiling of Gotham and get knocked down and see the rise of these young villains. I enjoy that. I think the guy who's playing the Penguin is incredible. He's so good.
I'm bad because I don't know. I keep thinking I made a mistake this weekend. Somewhere along the way, the Tim Burton version of Batman's was playing on TV, and I'm like, oh, good Lord. And I realized back then it was okay, but now after seeing it, it was Tim Burton. It wasn't very good. It was the Dr. Freeze, and it was bad. It was. And
which Tim Burton one?
It's the one with Dr. Freeze.
That wasn't Tim Burton. Wasn't involved anymore.
Why do I think he was? Maybe I think they did a marathon.
He was involved in the first two, but it was a part of that universe. He was involved in the first one and the second one, and then the third one, which was Batman Forever, which had Two-Face and the Riddler. Tim Burton dropped out, which made Michael Keaton drop out, and then they all started going downhill from there.
See, you know this stuff. What the hell, man? You need to be here more.
I'm a movie geek. I really like movies and watch movies, and I go to IMDb and I read the trivia all the time.
And I got to give you credit because when I saw Guardians of the Galaxy, I was bad mouthing it before I saw it, and you were like, PJ, come on. And I went and saw this thing. And it was really good. I was impressed with what they did with it. Now
it was
I'm
a
like,
very fun movie.
It was a very fun movie. I was
fair,
go ahead.
I badmouth movies as well. Like I've never seen Maleficent because I'm not a fan of prequels in general. I'm not a fan of, hey, isn't this a great character? Want to see where they came from? I don't care. At this point, the character's already established. So why are we going back to show me how this character became the way they are? And then, from what I understand, they changed a lot of things in Maleficent. So, I don't know. I haven't seen it, and I'm kind of fighting against it.
Maybe something you see with your kids when you have them, or someone else's kids when you borrow them.
When I borrow children.
Yeah, that's what. Hey, when you're single and you don't have kids, you get to be the uncle that give the noisy toys, and then you get to go home. Okay, so that's a good thing. And then the parents don't, Anyway, let's move on. I know the answer to this, but I don't know if the world does. In Star Trek, is it Kirk or Picard?
Ooh, tough question. I got to go Kirk because that's who I grew up with. I watched all the original episodes with my dad, and I love the Star Trek movies. So Picard's great. Don't get me wrong.
What do you think of the new movies?
What's that?
What do you think of the newer movies with Chris Pine?
I liked them. I thought the first one was better than the second one. I thought the second one they were trying too hard to please the fans. Like I still liked it, and I still had a good time. But it felt like it was trying too hard to be like, see, we know what you guys like. Look, here's Khan, and it was like, okay, but it's a British guy,
right? And they said a lot of the lines of just to bring back, I'm like, okay, where they switched the roles from Superman. Was it Star Trek 3, Search for Spock?
Sure. That's a great one.
The one before that where he dies from the radiation, and then they do in the last Star Trek they basically reverse the roles, and
they did.
And so it was tacky. There was a lot of like, oh please don't do this, we're not stupid, but I guess they did it. It
was a better action movie than it was a Star Trek movie.
Yeah,
I felt, and I'll give Star Trek 3 another chance because I know they're doing another one.
You get to see Spock kick butt though.
That was fun to see Spock fight like crazy.
He was, that was great.
I loved in the first one when they blew up Vulcan. I thought that was a really bold move.
Oh yeah.
But then it went against what they'd said. Like in the first movie, they set up, hey, this is our universe. We're going to explore Star Trek in this new way. Vulcan doesn't exist in this new world. And then in the new one, they went back to stuff from the old universe. They went back to Khan, and they went back to that sort of feel. But I think if the new movie, if they go in their own way, create a brand new villain, do it, make their own story, I think that could help the series and possibly propel it to more movies.
If you could go back in time and tell yourself when you were 12 something, what would it be?
Work out.
Really?
Start working out.
Start working out.
Get in better shape.
Okay.
That's what I
if you were trapped on an island, what one item and one person would you have with you?
One item and one person.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh. Well, person's easy. I'd like my girlfriend Julie to be there.
Again, all you guys with girls, safe answers. That's okay though. That's fine.
That's not a safe answer. That's the smart answer.
Yeah. Well, okay. All right.
It keeps me alive for another day.
Wow.
She might be listening. Hi, honey. One item. That's a great question. I don't know. That's tough. Like, can you define item a little more
Well,
clearly?
you know,
Like,
I don't know. I don't want to give it to you. A knife, a lighter, a hook,
right.
A net, a bed, any item in the world.
I'd probably go with a lighter.
Okay.
Because that way I can start fires with wood, so I don't have to rub two sticks together because I wouldn't be good at that.
Very cool. All right, and
I'm not a survivalist.
let's go back to you being 12. What 3 bands were you listening to back then?
When I was 12, okay, let's see, 12, I was working at the breakfast restaurant. I was listening to Bon Jovi. I was listening to Def Leppard.
Oh, good Lord. That's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, and Bon Jovi, when I was 12, what else was I listening to? Yeah, I was buying like a lot of older CDs. Oh, yeah, and Hootie and the Blowfish. I don't know if they were around when I was 12, but that was around that time. But definitely Bon Jovi and Def Leppard, and those are the big two. The third one, yeah, Hootie didn't come around until I was a little older. But I loved Hootie and the Blowfish in their first album.
And what is on your playlist today? What's something you'd listen to today?
Today, I listen to Toad the Wet Sprocket a lot. They have a new album that came out last year.
I didn't know
good.
that. I got to look that
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, new album. It's really good. It's really cool. I listen to them a lot. I actually am more of like a song person than I am a band person.
Right. Okay.
If I hear a song that I like, I'll go download it and play it over and over again. Just a sampling of what my playlist has right now. I've got there's a acoustic artist named Andy McKee who does really cool acoustic songs, and there's a version of Africa by Toto that's great. I have Johnny Cash. I've got Brad Paisley. I've got Billy Joel, Aerosmith. Green Day's I'm a big fan of Green Day, actually.
Yeah, I know.
If I had to pick a band.
I love that. I love the opening to the Brawl for All. That's so cool.
Yep, that's a Green Day song. My Christmas music just went off because the Christmas season ended. So,
very cool.
But ever since November and December was all Christmas music.
Well, of course. Yeah. Hey, listen, we're coming to the end here. I want to thank you so very much for giving me some time to talk today. I wanted people to get to know you. To be honest, I've now sat down with you. I mean, we've talked about things, but usually I go weird when we talk, so it doesn't work. Thank you. You're an awesome person. You've done wonderful things here. It's been a treat and a pleasure for me to learn and play with you on stage. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. And is there anything you want to say before we go?
Let's see. Yeah, in regards to improv, I think just this is a big lesson that I had to learn in Chicago, and it really helped me become a better improviser, was don't look at what you don't have, look at what you do have, especially in regards to playing and knowledge and skill. This is kind of general advice that helped me that I think if anybody's listening that is in improv, it'll help them. Be really happy with what you've got, because especially here in Orlando, or people involved in SAK or other groups, there's a lot of places where they don't have that. They don't have the opportunity to get up on a weekly basis and perform. So the better you are with where you are, the better your future will be, because you'll be more relaxed and more in the moment and more ready to play. As far as life advice goes, have fun and do what makes you happy, because this is what makes me happy. I'm very lucky that I get to do a job that I really enjoy, and that makes me happy. And I think that if you can do that, you should. And if you can't, then find a way to do it, because it will make your life outside of work so much more rewarding.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you very much for hanging out with us today. This has been PJ and Friends. This is Mike Carr, and we will see you guys next time. I'll talk to you later.
Bye. Bye-bye.
You're listening to PJ and Friends on PJandFriends.com. Orlando, Florida.